I can't believe Marvel actually did this. I was actually very surprised. For the first time in a very long time, Marvel actually made something good. Yes, you heard it here first. They made something good. Not just good, very, very, very good. And I'm just so surprised. So surprised. Because let's face it, after pretty much Endgame, I mean, nothing's been good. Like there have been everything's just it's okay, right? Right? Everything they've come out with, it's either bad or just okay at best. Guardians 3 was good. That was good. I like Guardians 3. But other than that, I mean Spider-Man, you can't count Spider-Man. That is Sony. So doesn't count. But I'm like going through even their TV shows, everything they come out with, I'm like, I mean, the What If series, I kind of like that animation. But they haven't really come out. But they finally did it. They finally cracked the code. I mean, I guess it's, just pure luck, roll of the dice maybe. But X-Men 97 is fantastic. It is so good. I was very impressed. Very, very, very impressed. I was excited to see the whole thing. Pretty much binged most of it all in one sitting, which I never do. I can barely stay awake for a movie, let alone binge 10 episodes. I think I binged like 2, and then the next day, then I went up to episode 8, and then the next day finished the other 2. But yeah, a great, great show. Love it, love it, love it. So many things. This is spoilers because I can't contain myself. I'm not going to try to hold back and try to tippy-toe around everything. I would say just go watch it. If you don't want things spoiled, then don't watch this review. But I'm gonna spoil everything. It is a great show. I can't recommend it enough. Here's the thing. This is what bugs me actually the most. I'm going to go into like some things that bug me. And it has really nothing to do with the show. It has to do with Marvel. And there's just morons over there. So X-Men 97 was announced, right? And so I was like, I already canceled my Disney Plus at this point. I was like, there's nothing on Disney Plus for me. I ended up watching reruns of the Winnie the Pooh series that I watched when I was a kid. That was like the only thing I really watched. But other than that, there's nothing on there I really cared to watch. I started watching Mandalorian season 3. I loved season 1. Season 2 was okay, and then season 3 I just turned it off. I couldn't even watch it. And the Book of Boba Fett just ruined Star Wars in general. It's just so awful, just pure awful. Anyways, so there's nothing on there. I watched some of the MCU TV stuff, and they're okay. Like, okay. Nothing like, they weren't like, oh, I can't wait to see next week's episode. I can't wait. I'm thinking about it. I can't wait. What does it come on Tuesday? I can't wait for Tuesday so I can watch it. None of that with the MCU stuff. Just like, it felt more like homework that I was doing just to like get through it. And that's what the MCU ended up turning into be, is just kind of like homework. But nonetheless, so here's what I don't like about Marvel. So the first announcement I got, obviously they announced that they're doing it. Okay, the announcement. Cool. And then the first thing I heard from it was they did the theme song, and they kept it original, and then they redrew all the frames again, basically in their little updated style. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but it's basically the same theme song, same look as Fool. Okay, that's cool, right? They did that little thing. The next thing I hear about it is there's some like morph controversy where he's whatever, not bipolar, whatever, non-binary, and like all this like weird stuff about that. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, I don't even want to, if like this is the way the show is going, like, and then one of the directors, writers, or cast members, someone is like, of course he's gonna be non-binary, he can morph into anything, but and now like justifying why he is non-binary. I'm like, I don't remember any of this stuff in the original cartoon, nor no one ever talked about it. Like, why is this in this cartoon? And so I was like, ugh, it's gonna be one of those things. And I'm like, I don't even want to deal with this thing. I don't want to, like, yeah. So, and then I saw one clip from it, and it was a clip that Marvel pushed out themselves before it was released of Jean Grey and Storm sitting in a bedroom and talking. That was the clip I saw. And I'm like, what? Like, I watched it and I'm like, this is their way of advertising. This clip, like, we're going to have this awesome show. Let's show you this part. I'm like, first of all, it is a story-driven clip part. And so it's totally out of context. And I have no idea what they're even talking about because it's like a 30-second clip or 30-second clip of them just talking in a bedroom. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then I'm looking at the animation, and the animation was not very good because it was one of those, like, it's called pencil mileage, where they save up their pencil mileage because then at the end of the episode or the beginning or somewhere, they're going to have a big action scene. So they kind of like draw it cheaply for a while to save up some time. They do that. You can always tell. sometimes during the show, they'll be from like here up the camera, so you don't even see their lips moving, and they're like talking, and then they'll pan to someone else, and he's like listening, and it's like just one drawn image, and they're like, get 3 seconds out of that one, a couple seconds out of this one, no real movement, because at the end they're going to have an awesome battle. So they're saving up their pencil mileage. So I watched the scene, and they're obviously saving up their pencil mileage in the scene. I'm like, why would you release this? Because I watched them, like, this looks terrible. The art looks bad. It looks cheaply done, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, the art looks bad. I am not watching this. So not only did you have basically this weird controversy with the whatever non-binary morph and all this kind of weird stuff. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, and then the lead writer gets fired before it even comes out. And I'm like, great. I have no idea what's going on with this whole thing. And he's fired. And I'm like, okay, so this looks like a train wreck. I don't even know why he's fired. I thought like they fired him because it sucks. They're like, we entrusted you with all this, kind of like the Deadpool thing, or not Deadpool, Daredevil. They came out the whole show and they're like, oh, let's watch the whole show. Oh, it's terrible. Let's rewrite the whole thing, but instead of rewriting it, fire the person. So that's my lead in to X-Men 97. Zero desire to watch it. None. I was like, you're not going to ruin my childhood. And then the show comes out. And bit by bit, I hear people talking about it, like, oh, it's so good, or this or that. Like, oh, it's so awesome, this, that. And I'm like, oh, interesting. I have people texting me about it. It's like, yeah, have you seen this show? It's really, really good. You should check it out. All this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I thought it was going to be terrible. All the signs point that it was going to be terrible. And Marvel didn't do itself any favors by trying to promote this thing and let other people know that it's going to be amazing. Like, put out more clips, cool clips that they definitely have very cool clips. Nothing. Nada. All you do is fill the news with negativity and stuff I could care less about. So then I hear all this stuff, and so I have all these people texting me, telling me about it, and I just like see different YouTubers and things like that talking about how good it is. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try out. I also don't have a Disney Plus, so I have my ways of getting it. But anyways, so I was like, whatever, I'll watch one episode, 30 minutes. I was hooked. It was fantastic. I saw things in there that I'm like, why didn't you do this in any of the movies? Like, I thought the Days of Future Past movie, that fight scene where they're fighting all the Sentinels and all, I thought that was amazing. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Buries it. Anything in this show buries anything you've ever seen in any other X-Men movie ever. It is fantastic. There's a part where they're fighting the Sentinel, and Gambit supercharges Wolverine's claws, and then he goes after the Sentinel. I thought that was fantastic. There are so many cool scenes, so many intricate, like where the writer who got fired, bravo, he did a fantastic job. Now, I don't know how involved he was, but from what I read, he's like the head writer, and he was very involved in it, read a lot of the lore. Fantastic. I don't know why you fired him. Marvel, you're a moron. You should rehire this guy. Not only is the action fantastic, the animation is actually quite good. It's better than the original. There's a little more movement and stuff like that. There are some parts where it looks like a little cheap, but overall, animation fantastic. The story is great. It's like picking little pieces through all the X-Men comic books and then kind of tying it together into its own story. So which is cool. I'm like, oh, I remember this in the comics. Oh, I remember this in the comic books. And then on top of that, they do a costume change where they have the 90s X-Men. They're all in their 90s costume. And then they all end up in their 80s costume. From like that video game stuff, they do a bunch of like callbacks, a bunch of Easter eggs, all sorts of stuff, like very, very cool thing. And here's the thing with the Easter eggs and callbacks and things like that. It only works if you're already invested in the show. So if you're not invested in the show and they're like, oh, look, this cool Easter egg thing, then you just think it and you hate the show, you're just going to hate that. It's like, oh yeah, try to win me over with an Easter egg, your show sucks. But the show is fantastic. Whoever did this put a lot of care and time, a lot of invest into like the story and everything and everyone's character. It was great. They actually made each individual X-Men great. They each got their own little moment to shine in the 10 episodes. Maybe they go on a mission by themselves or with a couple other people, but they all got their, which is cool because then you could really see each X-Men like use their powers to the fullest, which is great. I loved it. I could not speak more of like the story, the plot, everything. I guess voice acting. Yeah, the voice acting is pretty good. They got most of the people to sound just like I remember. Now, obviously, I'd have to go back and watch and compare, but I remember they did like. They added a few new things, like Cyclops was way more assertive and way more like leader-esque, I should say, than I remember him being. And I just remember him always whining about Jean 24/7. He still whines about Jean, but he was much better. He felt more like a leader and more like, I don't know, just like strong, not physically, but just, whatever the word I'm looking for. But nonetheless, all great, like all fantastic. There's a lot of twists and turns in it that I didn't see coming. Like Gambit dies, and I was just like, whoa, they actually killed someone. So they had the balls to like go there and have like some emotional weight, which really fed into Rogue's story and all sorts of stuff. And they changed costumes. Oh, it's just really well done. Really a good callback to the show. It's better than the original show because I have to look at the original show as the whole thing. I can't just pick certain episodes out and be like, oh, it's not as good as this one episode. Because towards the end, the show got a little, I don't know, kind of hokey. But for 10 episodes, it was a great story. I found myself rooting for Magneto because honestly, let's face it, Magneto is like, if most people are going to pick someone who makes most sense, it would be Magneto. Like, Magneto, honestly, to me, is the voice of like reason, the voice of normal humans. Like, if anyone was in their position, I feel like most people would choose Magneto as like, yeah, that he makes the most sense. If I was a mutant, but yeah, I wouldn't be part of the X-Men. But maybe that's just me. I find myself more akin to like Wolverine, Spawn, Hulk, like anti-heroes, not really like a Boy Scout like Captain America or Superman. But I don't know who would be those people in real life. I feel like most people would probably go the route of like Wolverine, Hulk, Magneto, like Venom, like those types of people. Nonetheless, the show is great. You have to watch it. If you're into animated stuff and things like that, very, very good. I am so surprised that Marvel actually pulled it off and made something good in a long time because, yeah, and then, of course, they bungle it by firing the guy, and it makes no sense to me that they fired the guy. I thought, I was like, he must have done something horrible, because they fired him before the show came out, so it wasn't like, oh, the first episode dropped and everyone hated it, and they're like, oh, cut him, So I was like, okay, this makes no sense. Like, why in the world would you fire him? It makes zero sense. So he must have done something really bad. I don't know. I have no idea what he did, but maybe he showed his penis to someone on staff, and then they're keeping it hush-hush so he can keep his dignity. I don't know. But he must have done something terrible because, lo and behold, he's fired. The show's great. Everything about it is great. Like, I cannot... Like, the one thing that kind of made me a little sad or disappointed was I was hoping the whole time... Oh, that's another thing. The intro song, not only is it pretty much exactly like it, but every episode in the intro you have to watch because they change it. So it's like if Gambit dies, he was in the intro to show him like doing his little thing. It says Gambit. And then so they replace him with Nightcrawler. And so the Nightcrawler's in it. And then Magneto's on the team. So then they replace him with Magneto. And they're always changing the people. And then they show these little cutscenes. And I'm like, oh, this is what's going to happen later. Usually they do that. They show like a cool scene that's going to happen in another episode in the intro. But no, they actually just redrew cool scenes from the previous animated show to show you just because. No reason. They didn't even show those in the show. They just did it because. And I was like, great. And every time you watch it, there would be like a new character on screen. And then you would also get like the cool new clips in there that weren't going to be in the show at all. And I was like, oh, a reason to watch it. Not to mention the show's, the song is great. And that's another thing they did with the song is like when they're ramping up and they're really, really getting into the battle and stuff like that, they would like play the song in the background. And so it like hypes you up and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And you get really, I found myself doing this. Like I can tell like all of a sudden it's getting intense. You know that meme where the guy's like sitting in his chair and he goes like that? That's why I found myself, all of a sudden it's like, ooh, action time. And so I'd stand up and like, well, not stand up, I'd sit up and like get really, really excited. I haven't felt that way in a long time. Super happy about the show. The only thing I was a little disappointed in, at the end, they're battling a bunch of Sentinels, and I was just hoping that all the X-Men, every single one that they showcased, would come together and have a big battle. That's why I was hoping. But they separated them into two different teams, and each team had their own little battles that they had to deal with. But I was like, they're battling all these like weird, like human-sized Sentinels, so you could have such a cool battle with them where they could like kill them and all that kind of stuff because they weren't really humans, and obviously you can't kill people in a kid's show, which I think is still a kid's show. It's not made for adults. But yeah, that's the only thing I was disappointed in. I was hoping they'd have this huge battle to like save up all their pencil mileage and like, okay, here we go. Here's going to be like $1 million spent in like the next 3 minutes. And that's what I was hoping for. But they didn't do that. So that was the only thing that kind of disappointed me a little bit. Other than that, the show is great. The whole morph thing, I thought I was going to see it. Something, nothing. I don't know what people are thinking about. Like they make some like kind of hints that maybe Morph is kind of like into Wolverine, kind of, right? He kind of, but to me, I also got that thing like he was actually just being a friend. So like one time Wolverine's kind of a little sad and he goes and grabs some like chips and a beer and then they kind of like, whatever, hang out. And then another time, they're after the danger room, they go into like, Morph's in like the locker room and sees like a showering, thinks it's Wolverine. He's like, hey, Wolverine, like goes in the shower. But it's like, yeah, I don't really get that feeling that he's, wants to bang Wolverine. I would think more of it, he's just like a friend to him, like a really close friend. Because I remember in the cartoon, I feel like Wolverine had it the hardest when Morph died. That's what I remember at least anyway. So maybe they're really close friends. That's about it. So I don't know what this whole whatever is non-binary, whatever. It's like that never got brought up, nothing. There's nothing, no inkling about it at all. And so I'm like, why do these people even write about this stuff? Like all it does is turn people off. So I don't know what they're doing. Like who cares? Like he's supposed to be this non-binary champion of the non-binaries. No, he's a nothing. They never mention anything. Nothing about that stuff. None of it. So I don't know why. And the cool thing, I was like, why are they putting Morph in here? I remember in the cartoon, but like he wasn't like the big main character to be on like the team. And then I realized why they put him in there. Because now they can put in a bunch more characters and it makes sense without doing backstory. So he can change, like he changed it in the Hulk. So then he's, oh, awesome, he got the Hulk. Not just that, but he changed it in Colossus, like Juggernaut. So you can put in all these other cool characters just for like a second. And people are like, oh, I don't have to give a whole backstory on why the actual Hulk is here or why Juggernaut is here. Have a whole episode dedicated. I just put him in for a second. And then people are like, yeah, good. You get to see Colossus, you get to see all sorts of stuff. So that was pretty cool. I can see why they put in Morph. And I remember Morph always being like kind of like really emo. He always had those bags in their eyes. So they do like a joke with that in before. A couple jokes in there. It wasn't like too funny, but it was a great show. I'd highly recommend it if you like, especially if you like the original cartoon. If you didn't even like the original cartoon or never saw it or don't even know what it is, I would still recommend this as a good animated show. I don't know. I can't recommend it enough. I would give it like either a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. Like, it's a great show. I look forward to it. Think about it. Like see the way I look at shows or movies or anything like that. It's like kind of like, what is that show or movie trying to do? If it's a comedy, you better make me laugh. Like I'm not going into a comedy, but like you better have no plot holes and better be like, have the best story, character development, and all that kind of stuff. No, comedy is supposed to make me laugh. Horror is supposed to make me scared in whatever capacity that is. Sci-fi, you better have some sci-fi stuff in there that's really cool and kind of blows my mind. Stuff like that. With romance movie, make me, have feelings and feel sad and stuff like that. So what are you trying to do? And if it does that, then it succeeded. And also, if it's like a TV show or a movie, and I think about it afterwards, like, oh man, and it like hits my mind, or I can't wait for the next episode or anything like that, it succeeded there. It's engaging. I never really checked my phone once when I was watching the show, other than like, wait, who's that character? And I'd like look it up real quick. But yeah, great all around show. Really love it. They're making a season 2. I'm kind of pissed that they fired the writer because I thought he did an amazing job. And they should hire him back because now I'm afraid that whoever they hire is going to be terrible and it's going to be bad. And it's not going to be, I don't know. This person read the comic books. They actually read the comic books and you can tell. And they even posted on their Twitter that they were reading comics. Like, oh, doing homework. And they'd like have a bunch of comic books out and they'd be like, obviously you're reading the comic books and you're like, ooh, that'd be cool if I tied this in with this and then that and all that kind of stuff and tied in a bunch of stuff to make its own story. But yeah, I don't know why they fired him. Stupid. You finally did something right, Marvel, and then you go and totally destroy it. So, but it is what it is. Let me know if you guys saw it and what you guys think of it. I loved it.